What's up, gunfighters? Grab your pencils, grab your notebooks, get ready for this class at Gunfighter University. A podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, use of force, survival, hunting, self-defense, the right way with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I am blessed to serve you as host. I'm going to put in a bio so you have some reference as to where I'm coming from and why you may take my opinions into consideration. I'll roll into a quick abbreviated bio and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years, also NRA certified and some other three-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a three-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast and elk and bear and wolf and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder, certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life and he said something to the effect of, "I thought you'd be bigger." Reminded me of that William Wallace movie where he's like, "Oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end." Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young, good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God. All the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through, I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength. It's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. Okay, this should be the last that I'm putting out for the regular listeners. My go-to survival shotgun. Now, real quick, the patrons already had my go-to survival shotgun in video format with a video of the stuff I'm going to talk about today a long, long time ago. They had this already a long time ago in video format, my go-to survival shotgun. Some minor things may have changed with ammo selection. I've learned a few things on different range trips, but in general, they had this, and they had it in video, I believe, quite a while ago. Also, I plan on doing all these for the patrons in one mega episode, Go-To Survival Rifle, Go-To Survival 22, Go-To Survival Handgun, Go-To Survival Shotgun. You get the idea. What are my go-tos? I've done other episodes before on the philosophy of each one and those kind of things. But I plan on putting these, my selections. If you've enjoyed this kind of mini-series, this should be the last that you get as a general audience. But I'm going to try and put this together as one big episode for the patrons and commercial free, so they don't have to go and search for different ones, and they get it all commercial free, because when they're that long, they tend to have quite a few commercials. Not to mention one small thing, a lot of the stuff they get is Patreon only content that you're just not going to get. They get a lot of Patreon only podcasts that you're just not going to get. So consider becoming a patron. All right, with that, my go-to survival shotgun. And I have said before, if I can only have one long gun for the end of the world as we know it, it's not going to be a rifle. I talked about my go-to survival rifle. I have a Scar 17. If I can only pick one long gun with no other caveats, it's not going to be the Scar 17. It's my best go-to survival rifle, but I would pick a shotgun over it. And a lot of people would gasp at that. Again, settle down. Broad spectrum. If you said a battlefield weapon, I would pick something else. If you cherry pick a scenario, I can probably cherry pick a gun. That would be the best gun for that scenario, at least for me. I don't know about you. Are you fighting grizzly bears with rabies? Are you fighting chipmunks with rabies? Is that a battlefield Red Dawn type scenario where you're peeing in a radiator? Is it Terminator 2 where AI has taken over, right? Like, pick your apocalypse. But I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about cherry picking some scenario. I'm talking about broad spectrum. And I talked about on Alpha Male Podcast, the soft white underbelly. Probably imagine that in most disasters, the grid is going to go down. A world that is vastly different than we know it today. And whatever causes that, there's a half a dozen things. It could be the cause or the effect or whatever, but the end of the world as we know it, vastly different. I don't see the future. I'm not a false prophet. I don't know what the future holds, and I'm not going to pretend to. But what I do know is that the shotgun excels for both personal defense, personal protection, let's say home protection, and putting food on the table. What food, and I specify food, refer Leviticus 11, but whatever food that might be. There is nothing as flexible as the shotgun. Ergo, if I was picking a long gun, if I could only have one long gun to take with me for the end of the world, I would pick, with no other caveats, again, you give me a caveat, I pick something else. If I have to bug out 1,000 miles on foot, I'm going to pick a 22. But if you give me no other caveats, I'm picking the shotgun. Nothing else can take without destroying reliably out of the air, no less, a quail, and also stop a grizzly bear. I live in North Idaho. That's grizzly country, right? Or any other thing. You know, a 12 gauge with slugs is a go-to guide gun in brown bear country, in grizzly bear country. People, I was just having a debate in the chat, the Patreon chat, just for fun, like 10 millimeter versus 44 mag for bear defense. You know what? Both of those pale in comparison out of a handgun to a 12 gauge slug. Just a Walmart 1 ounce 12 gauge slug. It's those are both powerhouses for handguns, but they don't compare to a 12 gauge slug. And that's just what I would call a Walmart load, right? I can take a 12 gauge slug, which you talk about stopping a charging grizzly bear or a charging rabid Honda Civic. Putting it in an engine. You talk about stopping a vehicle. You talk about many other scenarios. Is there better deer rifles? Yeah. If I'm going out and guiding for elk, do I take a shotgun? No. But here's the thing. If I'm going out hunting and that's the only thing I'm specifically hunting for, that's one thing. Even when I'm out in Idaho and I'll often go out long expeditions in the backcountry and I go to put food on the table, I will take a shotgun because I want the elk rifle for a grouse, right? And if you're in some kind of mobile bug out scenario, if you see a deer, a lot of times you will jump shoot a deer. It pops up at, I'm just picking a random distance, 20 yards. It's bounding away. Do you want a deer rifle in that scenario, or do you want a shotgun with buckshot? I want a shotgun with buckshot. I've taken enough deer to know that I want a shotgun with buckshot in that scenario. I want number 4 buck 41 pellet 3-inch Magnum Remington because I know my shotgun likes it and I know what it does. You get the idea. That's different than taking days to stalk out an animal that I want on the side of a mountain. I'm likely moving one place to another. Maybe I'm doing something else. Like if you live off grid, and you might know that I live off grid. My wife and I live as kind of nomads. a daily chore, especially what would be without grid water. Getting water is like a big part of your life when you live off grid. Just going down to the creek, shotgun slung, and I happen to see something on the other side of the creek. That's people coming close to camp, or whether that's an animal, or whether it's a food opportunity. Some grouse, a quail, doves just happen to be flying over. If I time it right, because a lot of times these doves will go to or from water sources at certain times of the day. If I can go get water and a couple of doves, hey, it's money, right? And I don't want the AR-15 for that. Anyway, the shotgun is the most versatile because of the different kinds of ammo you can get for it. And whether you're talking about a backcountry environment or urban environment. I've said this before, but I was a law enforcement officer. I worked some specialized assignments. I had access to an armory, literally an armory, full of all kinds of stuff that people would just rule over. Full auto, CAR-15s, M16s, literal Tommy guns, literal Thompson submachine gun 45 ACP gangster guns, and full auto PCC, submachine guns, all kinds of stuff. Literal sniper rifles. You know what I would take most of the time was going into an urban operation where I thought people were trying to kill me. A 12 gauge with buckshot and slugs. Why? Because it was the best tool for the job. It's not about what looks cool on Instagram. It's not about what the next gun tuber is trying to push on you. It's about what's practical if you're trying to actually survive and not look cool. And what's most practical in most situations, and most defensive situations occur, in my experience, even in warfare, even in and there are outliers, but more often than not, inside 150 yards. And a shotgun is devastating inside 150 yards with the right ammo. So whether you're talking about an urban environment or a rural environment, a straight up wilderness environment, the shotgun is the most versatile thing. So do things in an urban environment like breaching rounds, like less lethal. We had a big debate on that with the patrons about whether that's a thing you should have or not even bother with, but less lethal. Shotgun is a very versatile tool. Okay, enough about that. What is my go-to survival shotgun? It is a Mossberg 590S Vang Comp. And don't just gloss over the after part. Not all Mossberg 590s are created equal. Not all Mossbergs are built for the same thing. The Mossberg 590S can shoot short shells, and there are adapters so other shotguns can shoot short shells, but it can shoot the small short shells, the standard 2 3/4 or the 3-inch magnums. It can do them all in the same tube. I can load up a couple of one, couple of the other, cycle them all. I don't have to put an adapter in and take it out or anything like that. The 590S. The 590S Vang Comp. If you don't know, Vang Comp has kind of been in the premium tactical shotgun world for a while. They do a lot of specialty stuff. They do things like back bore the barrel. It has to do with patterning and things like that. Recoil reduction. It's also ported. They make several different models. You might look up their 590S Vang Comp or some other Vang Comp options if you're looking at that. But they're kind of known as like the premium shotgun connoisseurs, if you will. So the 590S Vang Comp, I added a rail to mine. I have a red dot on mine. You might know that I don't generally trust things with batteries, but the red dot will work while it works, and then I can take it off, and I still have really good backup iron sights on there. The red dot, this is one of my go-to core battery of guns anyway, and for day-to-day stuff, an optic is a force multiplier. A red dot on a shotgun is a force multiplier, just like it is on a handgun, just like it is on an AR. I like the red dot on there. So it has a red dot, it has a pistol red dot on it, mounted on the rail, and again, when it stops working, I just take it off. You keep a spare battery on the gun, but I could just take it off and get rid of it, and I still have really good iron sights. It holds 13 plus 1 of the short shells. It holds at 13 plus 1 of the short shells. It holds less of the other shells. I'm not going to try and do that by memory. You can go look it up if you're interested in this exact model. Again, it is ported. It is got some special bore stuff going on with it. It is a very good shooting shotgun with buckshot. I'm often skeptical when I hear the term game changer. There are very many things that are touted in the gun industry as a game changer. Very few things actually are. For me, one of the few recently, is short shells. You see, one of the big criticisms, and a rightful criticism, why many people write off the shotgun is the weight of ammo. Shotgun ammunition is heavy and bulky compared to most other ammunition, even compared to like a 308. Like, talking about that slug, look at the size and weight of a shotgun slug versus a 308 round. It's bigger and heavier, especially compared to, talk about like just to give you an idea, empty out a 12 gauge shell and see how many 22 long rifles you can pour inside of it. I don't know what that number would be, but it would be a lot. You could fit a lot of 22 in one single shell, an empty hull of a 12 gauge. Give you an idea of size and weight of ammo. To give you an easy comparison, you probably can picture in your mind the bulk packs like they have at Walmart. If your Walmart sells ammunition, if not, maybe consider moving if they don't sell guns and ammo in your area. But the big bulk packs, like the 4 25 round boxes, the 100 round pack of shotgun 12 gauge ammo. Picture what that weighs, and that's 100 rounds. If you emptied that out, you'd probably fit 1,500, maybe 2,000-ish rounds. I'm just doing this in my head, trying to picture pouring it in there, of 22 long rifle ammo. So the size and weight of ammo, all that to say that that's a big deal, especially if you're talking about long-term bug out on foot. Again, if you gave me the caveat that I had to bug out like 1,000 miles on foot, if I was stuck in the people hive that is the East Coast, east of the Mississippi River, my first inclination would be to get out of there. And if I had to cover those miles with my Lamborghinis, with my Subarus, leather personnel carriers, just to be redundant, then I would take the 22. There's a reason I have a go-to survival bug out 22. But it's not my general go-to survival long gun. It's a shotgun. If I don't have that caveat, I want the shotgun. But the size and weight of ammo is a big deal. Those short shells, talking about game changer, they're not as light as a 22, but those short shells, you can carry a lot more. And the big advantage of those, let's just say death doesn't come in degrees. Dead is dead, right? Just like there are people that live east of the Mississippi that hunt whitetail deer with a 300 Win Mag. No, I'm not saying you're wrong. Will it kill a deer? Yeah. But would you probably have killed that deer just as well with a 308? Yeah. And that might anger some people, but I'm just being real with you. So if it's dead, it's dead. Applying that to the shotgun, if I'm talking about birdshot, they make the mini shells and birdshot. If I'm shooting a dove or a quail, I can kill that just fine. A dove, a quail, with the mini shells. Many bird hunters prefer smaller gauges. I can kill them with the mini shells, and they're just as dead, right? I probably don't need an ounce and an eighth, ounce and a quarter of shot to kill a dove. If I can kill it with the mini shell, I did that, and I can carry more of them so I can actually get more birds. So if you look at it as a ammo to meat ratio, it's higher. You look at what a box of mini shells is in size and weight versus standard shells. And again, I don't use game changer lately like a lot of other people say. Game changer, it's a game changer. The 30 Super Carry is a game changer. Yeah, I think it's a flop. But I do think the mini shells actually are. So much so that I had for a while for out west and doing recon, I talked about I like to go out in the backcountry and do survival-y type stuff. You know, staying sharp on the survivaling, if you will. I had for a while a 20 gauge recon shotgun. Well, after I got used to the short shells, I brought my 20 gauge in, and it was a decent 20 gauge, in to sell it because they don't make 20 gauge short shells. With the advent of the 12 gauge short shells, really not saving any size and weight and ammo. You might argue I save a little bit in the weight of the gun, but anyway, for me, it's such a game changer that I brought in my 20 gauge to sell it. Now, if I were a dedicated, hardcore quail hunter and that's all I did, I'd probably the 20 gauge. All right, but for a general purpose, you get the idea that it made that much of an impact on me. Also, I actually just did a Patreon-only episode mentioning that. Talking about, and I've done this before, patterning my shotgun. You absolutely have to pattern your shotgun. Those short shells, they don't have as much of a payload. We're talking about dead is dead. The short shells, 15 pellets of number 4 buck. 15 pellets of number 4 buck in the short shell. That is a deadly payload if we're talking personal protection. I get 13 plus 1 in the tube. In general, that's what stays loaded in that Mossberg 590S. 13. It's my go-to truck gun, which I've done whole episodes on truck guns, so I generally will keep it without one in the tube so I can rack it because it's not going to waste any more time. I can rack it while I'm getting it out of the scabbard from behind the seat of the truck. I get 13. And it's a deadly payload. I like number 4 buck. Number 4 buck is one of my preferred buckshots anyway. And one of the other criticisms of the shotgun, which I don't care as much about, is magazine capacity. And as a cop, I use a standard 5-shot of double-aught buck and slugs on the side. If you got a problem you can't solve with 5 rounds of double-aught buck, that was probably a marksmanship problem and not a capacity problem, let's be honest, even in a multiple attacker scenario. There's no 2 to the chest, 1 to the head with double-aught buck. Let me just put it that way. Double-aught buck is a one-and-done deal. Not like a handgun where you practice, 4-round center mass. Again, this is 12-gauge buckshot. And I prefer number 4 buck. In law enforcement, you use double-aught, and double-aught does have application. And I do carry some double-aught, which I'll get to a loadout later. But number 4, and you get 13 of them. And here's the big advantage for me. Again, we talk about dead is dead. Number 15 pellets and number 4 buck. That's a lethal combo. And if I do have multiple attackers, the shot-to-shot recovery time is much faster than a full house double-aught buck load. So if I have to shoot, I'm probably not shooting anybody more than once with a full load of number 4 buck. But I may have to shoot 2 people once or 3 people once. Shot-to-shot recovery time is faster with those short shells. And this was kind of the game changer. I did an episode a long time ago, Tale of 2 Shotguns. And my go-to survival shotgun before this was different, which I'll probably talk about later. But I ran this side-by-side with a semi-auto, and it was impressive. And a lot of times you think of double-aught buck and slugs as beating you up. But I don't know if it's what combination of what things, whether it's the back boring or the porting or the short shells or all 3 of those, but not only is it not painful to shoot, because, I'm not going to lie, shooting a lot of slugs or double-aught buck full house to a 12-gauge can be quite painful. Especially talking about like a prolonged range session. It's just really enjoyable to shoot, which is rare to say for a 12-gauge. And it's not just like some tactical shotgun. It might look like one, especially with the red dot, but I was out, again, practicing my survivaling to stay sharp. Plus, I like putting meat on the table. Before I left Idaho, I was out upland game hunting with it. I was taking whale out of the air with that shotgun with the red dot. I talk about my go-to survival guns. I have a go-to survival dog, Rhodesian Ridgeback, Alexander Hamilton, well over 100 pounds. Great protector, great hunter, and keep him sharp too, right? Help him put meat on the table. Pay for his own way a little bit, right? He does a lot to take care of the family and stuff like that, but also hunting. He's gotten a few bear, he's gotten a few birds. He's become a pretty decent upland game bird. He points like a pointer. He's kind of a really good all-around hunting dog. I'm blessed to have that dog. God was very good to give us that dog. Great temperament, great with kids, good protector, fearless with bear. He's a good dog. But anyway, going back to the shotgun, we were out taking birds out of the air with that gun, with a red dot on it. If it's my go-to survival shotgun, I shouldn't just theoretically think it's good for taking birds and I can't actually do it. I should actually go out and hunt birds with it. Yeah, and we did. It was a lot of fun. You got to put the plug in it, which is kind of a pain with a really extended magazine tube like that, but you can do it. And here's a little tactical tip before the tactical tip. Just cut a dowel rod to whatever size you want. If you have one of those extended, for some reason, the Majesty's game, you can't hunt with more than 3 rounds a lot of times in a magazine for a lot of birds, fowl, or whatever. So just cut a dowel rod like you would find at the hardware store. Dowel rod to whatever length you need to take up in that number of shells and put it in the tube, literally. And you should be good to go. Obviously test it before you actually go out hunting, but it's just a piece of wood. But it is a really fast, that proves that it is a fast handling shotgun. Now, is it as good as like an over and under Beretta white wing 20 gauge for quail hunting? No, but it's decent. If I miss, I'm not blaming it on the shotgun, right? Quail are hard to hit, especially when a dog jumps them right in front of you. Anyway, it's a good all-around gun. It is a pump action. which most people like. I think most people like them because they're cheap and they want to think that they're just as good in a tactical application as a semi-auto. I don't think that. I'm going to buck the trend here and say that for most normal times for a defensive shotgun or even a hunting shotgun, semi-auto is better. Semi-auto is better. I don't care who says they're not reliable. It's like anything else. If you go cheap, it's probably not reliable. You get a cheap Turkish knockoff of, a Benelli M4 that costs $2,000 and you get one for $300. Don't be surprised when it doesn't work. Right? That's not because semi-autos are unreliable. That's because you bought a cheap junk one. That would be like you going to Walmart and going to the camping section and getting like an Ozark Trail $2 or $3 or $5, whatever it is now with inflation, dirt cheap folding pocket knife for like $2 or $3, and it breaks. And you're like, well, obviously knives are junk. A knife is a worthless tool. They're unreliable. No, it's because you bought a cheap Chinese piece of crap knockoff. Buy a decent like Spyderco. I don't even like Spyderco. I think they're hideous, but it's a better quality thing. You get what I'm saying? If you say a semi-auto shotgun is not reliable, it's probably because you bought a junk cheap one. Get a good one, and they are reliable. In fact, I think mechanically, to be fair, a pump action can be more reliable. It's a simpler machine. But if you introduce the human element, which is part of the equation, right? You do that algebra and x equals u, you're going to equal a greater number of malfunctions on the other side of that equation, in my opinion, with a pump than a semi-auto, because the person has to do it. And a person under stress, a lot of times, especially if they haven't spent a lot of time under stress, is not 100% reliable. You can induce malfunctions with a pump if you don't do it properly. If you don't run it like you're trying to break it. Get excited if you short stroke it, if you try to go too fast. All those things can cause issues in a pump. Take that out of it with a semi-auto. You pull the trigger. And that machine should work. Can the machine malfunction? Yes. But I think more likely that you malfunction running a pump, especially if you don't do it a lot under stress. And a lot of people don't. And it's faster. I don't care how fast. And I run a pump fast. I did a side-by-side comparison. And I was really impressed with how fast I could run that pump, especially with the porting and the... And I'm not talking about just shooting into a berm. I'm talking about actually getting hits at reasonable distances on target. I was impressed. Semi-autos are faster. Period. Right? So I think in general, semi-autos are better. My go-to semi-auto for years was a Benelli M1 Super 90. Should have kept that gun. I sell a lot of guns. I'm not a collector. I'm a gunfighter. There are a few guns that I've sold and I'm like, wow, I wish I hadn't have sold that gun. I wish I had not have sold that Beretta M1 Super 90 HK, one of the early ones. Just talk about an exquisite, elegant machine. Anyway, I did sell it. I got a Benelli M4. That is a fine door-kicking shotgun. It is a poor, in my opinion, crossover shotgun. It is way too big and heavy and unwieldy. Like I talked about, I'll take that. I'll take either my Benelli with the Benelli I have now or the Mossberg out bird hunting. I don't want to take a Benelli M4 bird hunting, right? Is it a tank? If you're just looking for a straight door-kicking shotgun, is it a great one? Is it perhaps the best strictly combat shotgun on the planet? Yeah, I'm going to say it is. I almost immediately got rid of it. It's not a good crossover shotgun, which I'm talking about a gun. A gun for both putting meat on the table and defensive use, not one or the other. One of the great things about the shotgun is versatility. That's not as versatile. It was heavy. And I looked at the Benelli M1, which again I probably should have kept. I actually took my biggest bear to date with that shotgun. But I looked at all the different options, and I ended up getting a Benelli M2. I got it with the short vent rib barrel. I think it's 20 or 21 inches, which is a good all-around barrel. But my go-to preferred barrel for both hunting and survival stuff and defense is a not rifled, but a rifle-sighted barrel. Rifle sights on a smooth-bore barrel that takes chokes. That's my preferred. I spent money, got an aftermarket barrel for it, so I have both barrels. That is was my go-to survival shotgun for a long time. So I got the Mossberg 590S. And it's better in almost every way except the short shells. Again, I say game changer. Like the short shells, if I do have to go on foot or if I am carrying all the ammo on me for a prolonged thing, I can carry more of the short shells. That's a big deal. Most semi-autos and a lot of pumps have issues with the short shells. You know, the semi-auto mechanism is dependent on that thing, on the cartridge itself cycling that action. Whereas the pump is not. The pump is dependent on you doing it manually. So for that reason, I switched to the 590S. But my good and go-to backup, and probably better, take out the short shells. So if you're talking about a pump that doesn't run the short shells, the Benelli M2, it's a really great crossover. You see that because it's used by a ton of hunters. It's used by a ton of 3-gun people. It's used in a bunch of other hunting applications. The Benelli M2 is, in my opinion, probably one of the most versatile options today. They make a bunch of different barrels for it. I did look at the Benelli M3, but there are not nearly as many options as far as different configurations and stuff for it. That Benelli M2 of mine with regular shells is crazy reliable. Whether we're talking about birdshot or full powered slugs or whatever, it's crazy reliable. And here's the one thing that I do miss going from, let's just say I would consider, and you might gasp at this, but I would consider the accuracy of that Mossberg, I would consider it a 150-yard gun. I know the kind of patterns that it shoots. It's not bad for a shotgun, but I don't know whether it's a back boring or it's just not as good as the Benelli. Again, if I know my dope, if I know my holdover, it'll do it. And it'd probably hold a tight enough group. That thing is crazy accurate with slugs. That Mossberg, I don't know, it may have something to do with the back boring or the Van Comp treatment. It's okay with slugs, but it's not a tack driver. That Benelli is a tack driver, and that Benelli M1 was a tack driver. It might have something to do with smaller bore diameter of the barrel itself. It may have to do with just that Benelli has really, really good sights. So I went back and edited out the range because I actually haven't shot the M2 to longer distances. I probably should before I put in a range that I'd be confident in actually shooting it, but it is quite a bit more accurate with slugs. I will say that. But what holds that back is not so much the accuracy, because it's, again, crazy accurate with slugs. What holds it back is the rainbow-like trajectory. And in actual defensive encounters, despite what, the sniper fantasy might have you believe, you're probably not having time to use a rangefinder. And the rainbow-like trajectory of a slug itself is the limiting factor of that. Not the accuracy in that Benelli and not the killing power, because I think the killing power far exceeds what you would think in a 12-gauge slug. I'm just talking Foster slugs. Now, I do think there is something to the true ball rifled slugs. I've had several shotguns that really like those. And again, you got to pattern your shotgun when fired by you. You may find that your shotgun likes certain slugs and not others. I know that Benelli likes 1,600 foot a second, which is pretty spicy. 1 ounce true ball rifled slugs. But know your shotgun when fired by you. But that was my go-to survival shotgun, and it would be if it wasn't for the short shells. So don't think that I automatically think a pump is better. But that Benelli M2, if you're looking for a really versatile semi-automatic shotgun, and there's a reason I say Benelli over other really good shotguns, like the Beretta. And I love Beretta. Beretta makes some really good world-class guns. They make some really good world-class shotguns. But for a go-to survival shotgun, I've said before and I'll say again, I think the Benelli is a better system than the Beretta in this case. Beretta and Mossberg and most of the other guns like the 1301, any of the other guns are gas guns. Gas guns have real advantages. I'll be honest, they have real advantages. They're in general softer shooting guns. Which again, shooting full power 12 gauge buckshot and slugs is not fun for me out of most shotguns. They are softer recoiling. But they're kind of like the AR-15 in that they go to the bathroom in the operating system. They throw dirty, nasty gas in the operating system of the gun. The Benelli system is an inertia system. There's no holes drilled in the barrel. You're not bleeding any of that dirty gas down into the operating system, down into a spring, any of that. You're literally using the recoil and the inertia to unlock the bolt head and cycle that action. It's a completely different operating system. They run crazy clean. So although... And they do, to be fair, they have a little bit more recoil. That's one of the downsides. But I think they're a more rugged, robust system than the gas system of most other semi-auto shotguns. And they're crazy reliable. So for that reason, I specify a Benelli inertia system. Not a cheap knockoff of a Benelli inertia system, an actual Benelli inertia system. If you want a cheaper, reliable shotgun, then go pump. That's when it makes sense. You can get an affordable, if you don't go Van Comp and you just get a 590, that's not a crazy expensive gun. If you want in my opinion, if you want a good, reliable semi-auto shotgun, it's going to cost you a lot. And I would say, $1,000, $2,000. You can get a good, reliable, at least, I don't know when you're going to listen to this, but at the time of this recording, you can get a decent, reliable or pump shotgun for under $500. So there's a big difference there. But if you get a really good premium in both, I think a semi-auto can be plenty reliable. If you're going for survival application, I would go inertia system. The only really good inertia system I'm aware of, that might not be true. But the big one, the big name in that is Benelli. And I'm not sponsored by Benelli. I'm just saying. The Benelli, most of the M series runs off that inertia system. Anyway, the versatility of the shotgun, a lot of that lies in the ammunition. I've mentioned what I keep loaded in the tube in general, and it may change, right? And it may depend on different parameters, right? When I go out doing other things, I'll load it with different things. But in general, for now, it stays loaded with 13 rounds of number 4 buck. On the side of the gun, which is something I learned running as a cop, I like to keep the side saddle of the gun on the stock, and I do the over the top, keeping the shotgun up and on target. If I have to single load or do like a slug select drill, I keep full length slugs, not the mini slugs, but full length slugs on the side. And I've tried with the mini slugs, and the shotgun actually is good and accurate and fast with the mini slugs, and I think they're plenty deadly enough. The issue is when I'm single loading them out of a stock, it's much easier and faster and less likely to fumble it with a full length slug than with the mini slugs. Just easier to orient and get in the chamber. And that's something I know from training and running your gun. You have to train with your gun. You have to train with your shotgun. Probably the shotgun more than a lot of other guns. It's a complex... There's a lot that can go into a shotgun. I just did an episode called the Simple Complex Shotgun. Go listen to that. But something I learned in training. So I'll generally keep on the side saddle slugs, because there's times when I want a slug. If it's a truck gun, there's a time when I might want to stop another vehicle, right? A slug is a good tool for that. Or if I have something at a longer distance. And I'm confident on a man-sized target that I can get hits out to 150 yards with that shotgun. Also, I have a bunch of other loads. Now, I should mention that's what's on the gun. I keep that in a go-to survival scabbard. Like a scabbard that if I'm grabbing it in a hurry, I can literally throw it on my back, like a guitar case. Kind of like that if you want to picture it. It's got 2 straps, but I can put them together and use it as a quick sling bag, throw it on and run. Or I can put one on each shoulder like a backpack. Or it's a molly system. I can attach it to my go-to bug-out bag, which also rides behind the truck, behind the front seats of the truck. Both the shotgun and the bag are on there. And it's not normally on the bag, but I could attach it to the bag if I wanted. It's like a go-to survival scabbard, and it has 2 containers for ammo on the scabbard. I keep that with an assortment, because that's one of the things about the shotgun, right? I have anything from your traditional 9-pellet double-aught buck to some deep penetrator slugs to some Magnum 41 pellet number 4 buck, different kinds of birdshot, number 6 shot, some really go-to target loads. Again, that's one of the cool things about the shotgun is the versatility of the ammo. So I keep that all on the scabbard with the shotgun. And then I have, I don't know what you would call it, but it's something I use a lot for hunting, but I keep it loaded with a bunch of shotgun shells. It's something used a lot for shotgun and small game hunting. It's like an old school haversack. It's felt, so it's really quiet in the field. But it's just like a throw over shoulder bag that's like felt. And it's got a couple of compartments on the outside so you can grab shells quickly if they're like go-to shells. And I keep the inside loaded with, I want to say 70-something rounds of the mostly short shells. There's some regular shells in there, but mostly the short shells. Both, or not both, but birdshot, buckshot, and slugs in the short shells. And I can get 70-some rounds in that little tiny compartment. Again, one of the big things of the short shells. They're smaller, take up less space. So I got 70 rounds there. Got well over 100 rounds on just the shotgun in the case and that haversack. I also have a go-to, it's like it's about the size of one of the shotgun ammo cans that holds 100 rounds, but it's a soft case like that, like zip up square, and I can throw that in my bag if I want. That's also back there behind the truck, and that's got an assortment of different rounds, slugs, birdshot. Now, not all birdshot is made the same either. You could be talking about the cheapest made to the lowest bidder Walmart 7.5 birdshot, which you might think is okay for some things. But when I say bird shot, I mean all manner of smaller shot that not just used for birds, but like number 6 shot is a good go-to for pheasants. It's a good go-to for rabbits. Whereas turkey is a bird, but you might want number 4 shot or number 5 shot for turkey. Geese and, let's say geese especially, B, triple B, BB. All those kind of shots, even T-shot if you're allowed sometimes. All those different kinds of bird shot. So there's a lot that encompasses bird shot. So don't think just because I say bird shot, I mean I have a box of 7.5. I have all that. I also have a grab and go. It's kind of like an ammo can, but it's a soft case instead of a hard case ammo can. So I can grab that and throw that in my survival bag if needed. There's also specialty rounds if one would want those. Not going to say exactly what's in my kit, but just look into the versatility and specialty shotgun rounds. Specialty shotgun rounds, this episode I did for the patrons quite a while ago. But suffice it to say, there are some specialty loads in my kit. Not the majority, but I'd say a strategic minority. Carry a pull-through bore snake. Shotguns are pretty forgiving on maintenance, especially if they're chrome lined. Carry a bore snake in there. Carry some extra choke tubes. I carry one in the buttstock, on the buttstock shell holder, but I carry quite a few clipped on there in a little pouch designed for choke tubes. I do have taped in the stock because I have camo duct tape wrapped around the stock. One, because you can't shake out all the inner redneck, no matter how far away from the south you move. But also I carry an extra wrench in there to work on the shotgun, one of the few wrenches it needs. And I carry 1 or 2 spare batteries for the optic because they're small and they're flat. And the duct tape's a good insulator, so I keep those wrapped to the polymer stock. So if I want to, I can switch out a battery. And when the batteries are done, I just take it off and throw it away, and I have good backup iron sights. Anyway, that's basically the survival shotgun that I have. Oh, I do keep a bayonet on the scabbard. Because if you're going to be tactical, might as well go full tactical. With that, the tactical tip of the day. One does not need a bayonet for a good, robust long gun to be a formidable melee weapon. You can do the same thing, albeit not as deadly, but a good, let's say, way to make opportunity and make distance is a good forward thrust or jab with just the barrel end of a long gun in the face and the teeth. It's a good motivator and might get you some space. It's also a good butt stroke and a buttstock smash. Those are good go-to melee combat techniques with a long gun. I don't think that you need a blade on the end if you're going to make it formidable. I did a whole episode again for the patrons. Patrons get a lot of specialty insider-only content. I'm not going to apologize for that on like what I consider good bayonets and not so good bayonets and bayonet philosophy. But don't think that you need one. Is it a force multiplier? Yeah. But is a long gun still a formidable melee weapon without it? Yes. Yes, it is. You know what's more important than the weapon you have? Bravery. Let me read to you from Revelation. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Kind of seems like that's in line with the first part of the Bible. For it is written in the Torah, "What man is there who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, lest the heart of his brethren faint like his heart." Better to go into battle with men of courage, even if they're few, than a bunch of cowards. It's my own commentary there after the reading. But the officer is supposed to speak to the people and say, who is fearful and faint-hearted, let them return home. Cowardice, I think, can be like a disease, can be like an illness, and infect other people. I don't want a coward by my side in battle. And we saw in Revelation, who were the first people mentioned in hell? The cowardly. Don't be a coward. Faith and fear are at opposite ends of the spectrum. If you trust God, what do you have to fear? right? You should have faith in God. Trust in the Lord. If you have Christ as your Savior, you trust in Him, you follow Him, you should not fear death the way that a non-believer, a non-Christian fears death. And that should make you brave. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. There's a lot that goes into that, but part of that is freedom from fear. Be free, man. Be a free man. Stand up with your head held high, your shoulders back, and your head up. Walk in the light as a child of the light. Don't be afraid. With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.